Part 53. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 521. Chapter 521 Destroy Li Lauer with a ruthless hand. Is there anyone in the world who doesn't love flowers? Even if you don't know how to grow them and are impatient to get wet and muddy, you can feel better if you take a few more glances at the beautiful clusters of flowers. Seeing pots of flowers being brought into the garden, many of them were famous flowers, everyone was very excited. When I found out that this garden is the property of the Li family and will be used exclusively for flower viewing in the future, everyone was even more happy. Previously, famous flowers such as cyclamen often appeared, but only those who ordered private dishes could see them. Others can only hear about how rare and beautiful famous flowers are, but they can only feel itchy and cannot see them. Now, with such a place dedicated to flower viewing, everyone has another good place to go. The CAO family, young and old, were worried about the empty yard before, but now they feel even more anxious when facing the full yard. The emerald hydrangea, which is rarely seen on weekdays, was crowded together in more than a dozen pots, and one of the petals fell off. The clivia, with leaves as wide as a palm, almost pulled out its flower stems, and dozens of pots were stacked on top of each other, performing acrobatics. The camellia in full bloom has a corolla as large as a person's arms, but it is planted in a palm-sized flower pot. They all seem to be able to hear the camellia's cries of grievance. And that pot of pine leaf peony was actually showered by water jets again. Master, old man Cao couldn't bear it any longer. He rushed over and grabbed the kettle from Mr. Li's hand. His eyes were red, and he blocked the pine leaf peony tightly behind him. He almost gritted his molar teeth and said, "My boss, this is a pine leaf peony. You can't water it. This flower is drought tolerant. As long as the leaves don't turn yellow, it will bloom. No need to water it, otherwise it will rot to death." Li Lauer blinked his eyes twice, smiling awkwardly and feeling guilty. "Well, I just saw that the soil was cracked, so I just did it. Master, please don't let me go and drink tea quickly. I will arrange these flowers for you, let me arrange them." Old man Cao stretched out his arms, wishing he could gather all the flowers in his arms to protect them from his master's poison. Mrs. Li and Tao Hongying were standing in the flower pot, admiring the flowers and talking, but they couldn't stop laughing when they saw this. They still remember the pot of flowers that Li Lauer had raised to death before. So, Mrs. Li said, "Second brother, let's go into the house to drink tea and leave this place to Lao Cao and his family. Growing flowers is the same as growing crops. I don't have 7 or 8 years of experience. But if you can't grow well, let's help. Just don't be busy, don't make trouble." Hearing what Mrs. Li said, Lao Cao's face turned red and he lowered his arms, feeling very frightened. He was so flirtatious just now that he couldn't help but be rude to his employer. These flowers all belong to the owner. Not to mention watering them, the owner uproots them and throws them away, and no one else has the right to say anything. But he just can't bear to part with it, because flowers are the life of the person who grows them. He hurriedly knelt down, but Li Lauer picked him up and said comfortingly, "Uncle Cao, I really don't know how to grow flowers, but I still like growing flowers. I won't ask you for more advice in the future. You can sort these flowers first. When you have free time later, it will not be too late for you to teach me more." "Hey, yes. Don't worry, boss, I will definitely arrange all these flowers." Old man Cao was very excited. It is really rare for such a generous and careless boss. No wonder the boss was able to get so many good flowers back. In the eyes of flower growers, good flowers are spiritual and can choose their own owners. For example, if an orchid is bought by a despicable person, it will not bloom again even if it is carefully maintained. This is also a small reason why literati like orchids. Because the orchids at home bloom well, not only do they know how to take care of them, but it also proves that they are of high moral character. This is a kind of invisible showing off and boasting. Ms. Lee said she was going to drink tea in the house, but in fact she couldn't stay idle at all. She turned around and took her daughter-in-law, granddaughter, and mother-in-law and maid, and ran to the kitchen to make dumplings. Joking and working at the same time, it was very lively. The 4 members of the CAO family are also very busy, and from time to time they dance with joy because of the beautiful flowers. Only Li Lauer was standing under the eaves of the corridor holding a teacup, suddenly feeling lonely as if he had been abandoned by the whole world. But there was nothing he could do. Before he even learned how to grow flowers, he already had a reputation for destroying them. 3 days passed by in a flash, and the garden had been completely arranged. The fragrance of flowers was everywhere, and the colorful flowers were everywhere, making people step into the courtyard door. You can instantly raise your smile. The CAO family seemed to have been given a shot of chicken blood, especially old man CAO, who would get up in the middle of the night to take a look, fearing that the heavy night dew would damage his precious flowers. During the day, he kept them all in mind, which pots needed sunshine and which pots liked shade, and he had a great time moving them in and out. The Lee family stayed in the garden for a few days, and they were very happy to miss Shu. But today we have to go out, because Jiren and brother Li have finished their exams and have to leave the examination room. Li Zhensheng, Li Lao-san, and Mr. Wen were waiting at the gate of Gongyuan again, and this time even Jia Huan, Jia Yi, and Lu Yang came. Everyone gathered together, looking in with their feet up, almost stretching their necks. Finally, the gate of Gongyuan was opened, but the first ones to come out were a few stretchers. The student on the stretcher looked pale and half dead, and everyone who saw it was worried. The weather was already hot, and hundreds of people were locked in a courtyard, eating, drinking, and eating. They also had to use their brains to answer questions. This was a physical and mental test. Those who are not in good health on weekdays will be held back at this time. To avoid cheating, as long as the gate of Gongyuan is closed, it will not be opened in advance unless there is a fire or earthquake. So, even if these students fall down, they can only be dealt with simply by the doctors inside. You can guarantee that they will not die, but if you want to serve them well, it is impossible. Whether they can survive in the end depends on luck. In the final analysis, the imperial examination is about strength, physical strength, and luck, all of which are indispensable. The family members of the sick student rushed forward and escorted the student out in tears. Only then did the students who successfully completed the exam come out. Brothers Jiren and Li Gear were carried out by the crowd with each other's support. They looked around and saw red circles in their eyes when they saw their family members. This was an exam, not a battlefield, but after being imprisoned for 3 days and suffering so much, they couldn't help but feel aggrieved. Zheng Feng and Zheng He rushed in, carried each of them on their backs, and ran out. The Li family's carriage had already prepared things. As soon as the family members and brother Li got in the car, they closed the door. Jia Huan and Jia Yi helped. They took off the clothes, shoes, and socks of their brothers and changed them into a clean and refreshing set. They also wiped their hands and faces 2 or 3 times. Finally, they put a cup of honey and passion fruit drink with less ice in their hands. Cool and sweet, it slides all the way from your mouth to your stomach. The long-lost taste finally made Jiren and brother Li feel alive. When they got out of the car again, the 2 boys had regained half their energy. The family was finally relieved and didn't say much. Li Lauer and Mr. Wen took their 2 boys with them and went to ask for leave from Dingzhou, leaving them to stay in the city for a while. After reading the list, they would go back to the village to rest. Dingzhou naturally agreed. After the exam, there were originally 5 days of leave. This was the academy's practice. Li Lauer knows how to be a good person and sent a large bucket of ice-filled fruit drinks to the academy, which made the Luoan students who had just left the examination room cheer. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 522. Chapter 522 An Unexpected Double Happiness. The examination room was really stuffy and hot. What they had been thinking about most these past 3 days was not the test questions, but the fruit drink with ice. As long as they have a cup to relieve themselves from the heat, they will also be able to express their thoughts and do better in exams. Soon, everyone in the Lee family returned to Byron Garden, and Dean Joe also brought the students back to Luowan. Jiaran and Brother Lee talked about the test questions on the way, then entered the Byron Garden, drank a bowl of millet porridge, and fell asleep without even having time to take a look at the colorful flowers in the courtyard. This sleep, they slept until the next morning before waking up. This is not because I am full from sleep, but because I am so hungry that I can't stand it anymore. The breakfast table at home had just been set. After washing, the two boys sat down and started eating without being polite. Tao Hongying took Shui Ling and Shui Yun with her. She got up early and cooked a large pot of rice porridge and steamed 2 large baskets of steamed buns with beans and pork. Half of them were eaten by the two boys in the blink of an eye. Everyone only had 1 bun in their hands, and some of them were afraid to eat it, for fear that it would not be enough for 2 boys. Jiaran and Brother Lee had enough to eat and drink, and their faces turned red when they looked at the appearance of their family members. They were so hungry that they didn't care about etiquette just now. These 3 days in the Gongyuan were the most miserable 3 days in their lives. Especially Jiaran, who was assigned next door to the smelly one. The stinky number is the one at the end of each row of stalls, next to the toilet for defecation. Jiaran's position is a little better than that of Stinky Hao, but the extent of this goodness is extremely limited. It's cold in winter and everything can freeze, so that's okay. But on such a summer day, dozens of people gather together, and the clerk refuses to dump them often, and then the sun shines. When Jiaran thought about it, he felt that he had eaten too many buns, and he felt like he wanted to regurgitate. On the second day of the exam, the student who made the loud noise collapsed and was carried out. Jiaran really had no other choice, so he tore the hem of his clothes into strips of cloth and covered his mouth and nose, insisting on persisting until the end. Fortunately, Brother Lee's location is better, located at the innermost side, away from the stink bomb. The family members were really surprised and annoyed when they heard the brothers talking about everything in the examination room. Tao Hongying said, "With so many people taking exams, why can't Gongyuan take care of it properly? How many people are studying hard just for this day, and they are fooling around like this?" Mrs. Lee also said, "Yes, we don't need them to provide us with good food or good food. At least we have a good environment and don't distract the students." Li Zhensheng smiled bitterly and said, "Mom, they are not bad here, but they are a bit hot and dirty. When I took the exam that year, it rained, and some candidates had finished answering their papers, but they were soaked by the rain and immediately ruined." "Is there such a thing?" Mrs. Lee was surprised, and everyone also sighed. Li Lauer is obsessed with studying and taking exams. He almost risks his students' lives if he doesn't think about taking exams. He feels sorry for his son, but he can't kill his son's spirit. "So," he said, "don't worry about how you did in the exam. You all tried your best. It's been a lot of fun these days. After the results are released, pick up Jian, Jiaxi, and Brother Mao. Let's go back to Sujintan and stay there for another 2 days day." "Okay, Dad," Jiaran responded and said with a smile, "we just took a look at it yesterday and went to bed. There are so many flowers in the yard now, let's go and take a look." Li Lauer has learned a lot about nourishing flowers from Lao Cao these days. At least he can name all the flowers. At this moment, he took his son and nephew out to show off. At noon, Tao Hongying cooked a few dishes. Jiaran and Brother Li ate enough. They slept for a while in the afternoon and woke up in the evening and they were completely recovered. They are young and have good physical strength after all. But the whole family was going to bed, but they were not sleepy anymore. Jian immediately arrested his two brothers as laborers to count all the famous flowers in Baiwen Garden, mark the quantities, and write numbers on the flower pots to facilitate accounting when they are sold later. Mrs. Li felt sorry for her grandsons, but when she saw them chatting and laughing with her sister, which was a rare lively moment, she didn't stop them. 3 days passed in a flash, and the results were finally released outside the Gongyuan. The alley outside the Gongyuan was so crowded that neither Mrs. Li nor Jiyan dared to look. Today was another day for private cooking, so Li Zhensheng and Tao Hongying went to a restaurant. Only Li Lao took Jiaran and brother Li, protected by Zheng He, Zheng Feng and Yeshan, and killed them outside the Gongyuan. There was a sea of people in front of the list. Since everyone couldn't get in, Zheng He, Zheng Feng and Yeshan resorted to a unique trick. Zheng He and Zheng Feng struggled to squeeze their way into the middle of the crowd. Yeshan climbed up the wall, stepped on the shoulders of Zheng Feng and Zheng He, and jumped directly to the front. In the end, the three people squeezed in, their clothes were opened, their shoes were lost, and they finally saw the news. Jiaran is ranked 51st on the list, and brother Li is ranked 108th on the list, which is the last place, barely catching the scholar's tail. This makes everyone crazy. After all, Jiaran's exam position was too bad, which delayed his performance, and brother Li was also young, having only studied for 3 years. Unexpectedly, both brothers got hit. Especially brother Li, they decided not to let him take the exam at first, but he made a fuss to accompany his eldest brother, and the family agreed to let him gain more experience. I didn't expect him to be so competitive. You should know how many old boys and girls have turned their hair white and are still trapped in the world before being a scholar. Brother Li actually acted like a joke and became a scholar. Yeshan ran home madly to report the news, while Zheng He went to Xiankile to report the news. Li Lao took 2 boys to pay tribute to Dean Zhou and the others. After all, without the academy's training, they would not be where they are today. Because of their status, Dean Zhou and the gentleman could not stand in the crowd, so they booked a private room in a nearby tea house. I heard that Jiaran and brother Li had both passed the exam and were 2 young students. The dean and the gentleman were naturally happy and encouraged them. At this time, the chief attendant sent by the academy also returned. This time the academy has a total of 8 people on the list. There were 35 candidates, and 8 people were on the list. This result is really surprising. Of course, what is more surprising is the Li family, because their family accounts for a quarter of the total number of new talents in the academy. Every day at noon is the busiest time for cyclamen. Especially in the past few days, cyclamen has launched a new drink, honey and passion fruit drink, which is not only sweet, but also has ice cubes. In such a hot weather, 1 cup is enough to keep it so good that even a would not replace it. As a result, many guests rushed to drink the fruit and were willing to come and sit. After all, eating is not about eating. It would be better to have a drink to relieve the heat. When Zheng He rushed to Xiankile, he shouted happily when he saw Li Zhensheng, the eldest master has won, he has won. The eldest young master and young master Li have both won the title of scholar. What, no matter how steady Li Zhensheng was, he was so surprised that he wanted to jump up at this moment. Great, great. When the chef heard the news, Jie Huan and Tao Hongying also rushed out, both excitedly waving their cooking shovels. When there are guests who are familiar with each other, quickly say congratulations with a smile. Li Zhensheng waved his hand. In order to celebrate his nephew and son's success in becoming a scholar, today they will give a dish to each table, plus a glass of fruit drink for each person. This made the guests express their thanks and congratulations even louder. Similarly, Baiwen Garden has also become a sea of joy at this time. Especially brother Li, he didn't react for a long time. He was there to accompany his brother, so he didn't try his best during the exam. He just wrote whatever he knew how to do, so why did he pass? Jiaren's eyes were red, he hugged his brother tightly and patted him on the shoulder. Actually, my younger brother is the youngest and has only been in school for a few years, so he doesn't have to work so hard. However, during this period, I stayed up late and got up early with him all the time, and never complained. With such a result today, others would say luck, but only he knew that luck accounted for 3/3, and his younger brother's talent and hard work definitely accounted for 7/3. That night, the whole family had a good meal and celebrated. Just waiting for the next day, Li Lao-san sent Jian, Jiaxi, and Cat brother over, and then went back to Sujintan. As a result, the three boys arrived early the next morning, as did Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng. The Li family was confused, but they welcomed Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng in politely. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 523. Chapter 523. Dean Zhou has a presumptuous request. Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng entered the courtyard and found themselves unable to walk. There is no other reason. The yard is full of flowers, so beautiful that people can't take their eyes away, and nails grow under their feet. Out of the city, there is Broken Gold Beach almost not far away, and everyone in the Li family is not in a hurry to go back. Li Lao simply introduced the flowers and plants in the yard to these two, which aroused the children's curiosity and followed them to listen to the fun. Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng even wanted to move the entire garden back to the academy. Finally, after looking around for a while, Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng reluctantly entered the room to drink tea. Seeing that their eyes were still staring at the door, Li Lao was really proud and funny, so he said, "In 7 or 8 days, Baiwan Garden will open its doors to welcome guests. At that time, the Dean and Mr. are willing to come over to enjoy the flowers. They are welcome at any time. There is also a greenhouse to be built in the East Garden in winter. It would be nice to invite the Dean and my husband to bask in the sun, enjoy flowers, and drink tea together in the greenhouse. That would be comfortable." Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng nodded repeatedly and smiled happily. Finally, when they saw the Jiaran brothers around, they remembered the business. Dean Zhou didn't beat around the bush and asked straight to the point, "Uncle, I heard that our family has a fleet going to Quanzhou, and Jian and Jiaxi are also going on a study tour with the ship." Li Lao nodded. The family didn't want to hide this matter, and they couldn't. Because Jian and Jiaxi are away for 2 or 3 months, the academy has to ask for leave, and the reason for the leave must be made clear, otherwise the academy cannot let students go out at will. I just don't know what the dean has in mind when he asks this. What the dean said is that my eldest brother's restaurant specializes in seafood, and my family always has to travel between Xindu and Quanzhou, so it is convenient to have a fleet of 3 or 5 small boats. Both boys Jian and Jiaxi are not of a quiet temperament. They are afraid that they will not have much future if they study alone, so they want to go out on the boat to gain their knowledge, in case they can find a profession that they like and can make a living for themselves. That's the best. These words were true, and Dean Zhou and Mr. Peng both nodded. Many people send their children to academies as if they have nothing to worry about. They wish that the child they send in is a young boy who will be a scholar after leaving the academy. In fact, learning is not that easy. There is still a big difference between students and students. For some people with high talents, the scientific examination is easy, as long as they are willing to put in 70% effort. But he is a little inexperienced and playful, so he is really not the type to concentrate on studying. After 4 or 5 years in the academy, it would be good if he could barely pass the examination as a boy student. The Li family is such a rare understanding person. Don't just rely on academies. You also understand children's habits and know how to pave the way for them in advance. Dean Joe sighed inwardly, but he opened his mouth with a request. To be honest, Uncle, there are some students in our academy who have been studying for 3 to 5 years. Their knowledge is good, but their knowledge is very limited. I have always wanted to find a suitable opportunity to take them out for a walk, but considering safety, it cannot be done. A few days ago, I received a letter from a good friend who is a teacher at Hanhai Academy in Quanzhou, inviting students from our academy to visit, exchange ideas, and enhance knowledge. By coincidence, I heard that your fleet is going to Quanzhou. I wonder if you can carry the gentlemen and students from our academy. Of course, our academy will bear all their food and accommodation expenses. Li Lauer had some vague guesses in his heart, and after hearing this, he felt a little embarrassed. At first, the fleet does not belong to him, but to his elder brother, and he cannot make the decision. Secondly, Jingui, a student of the academy, said that although the academy would send a gentleman to follow him, if there was a bump in the road, the Li family would be more or less responsible. But Principal Joe showed his face and made a request. If he refused, it would also hurt each other's face. In the future, several children in the family would still be studying in the academy, which would be somewhat embarrassing. He thought quickly in his mind and said, "Dean, it stands to reason that when college students want to study abroad, our family should try our best to support them. But this time I am afraid that the dean will be disappointed. The dean also knows that the main task of our family's small fleet is to transport fishing goods, and there is a deadline for the return trip. We are about to set off this time, and I'm afraid we won't be able to wait until the students have made arrangements. Moreover, such fishing boats generally have a large bottom and only 1 or 2 cabins above. The smell is very fishy, and the boatmen are used to it. Our Li family also comes from a poor background, and our children are thick-skinned, so we are not afraid of anything, but students and gentlemen may not be able to bear it." Ah! Dean Joe was a little disappointed, but he also knew that what Li Lauer said made sense. He received the letter suddenly. He was happy for the moment and did not think carefully. "I just thought I could get on the boat and leave, but in fact, food, accommodation, and safety issues on the way really need to be carefully arranged. That's it, forget it. I'll think of another way." Dean Joe frowned, obviously not wanting to give up this opportunity, and the Li family couldn't help. Li Lauer said with a smile, "The dean has not been walking on water for a long time, so he doesn't understand the difficulties involved, so it's understandable." Dean Joe nodded, cupped his hands and said, "Thanks, okay, thank you uncle for reminding me, I'm really annoying today." After sitting for a while, Dean Joe and Mr. Peng stood up and left. After all, the Li family had to go back to Sujintan. There are 2 talented people in the family, so we should celebrate it no matter what. Li Lauer invited them to a banquet. Dean Joe smiled and said, "Don't worry about it. When the 2 children pass the examination, it won't be too late to have a wedding banquet together." Everyone laughed and sent the 2 of them to the door. Until the carriage from the academy had gone far away, the young and old of the Li family hurriedly got on the carriage and drove home. Sure enough, not far out of the city, they met Lu Biatu, who came out to meet them. Lu Biatu laughed and said, "You are back, everyone is waiting anxiously. The village has already started preparing for the banquet, including Mr. Wen, Mrs. Wen, and the 5 members of the Lu family." Li Zhang from the Weisha village and Da and Xiaoang Zhuang brought hundreds of people from the village with him. The village was so crowded. The village chief made the decision and killed 2 big fat pigs. Every family is scrambling to share the money and serve wine to celebrate the 2 talented men. The young and old of the Li family were even more happy after hearing this, and hurried to the village. As soon as the carriage entered the village, it was surrounded by villagers. When Jiaran and brother Li got off the carriage, the villagers cheered. Even some young men lifted Jiaran and brother Li and took them directly to the Li family yard. Jiaran and brother Li's faces turned red. They were worried that they would fall, so they had to bow their hands to the villagers. The villagers were so excited about such a young scholar. Still got 2 out of the exam at one time. Counting the whole Tianwu, I am afraid there are not many such double happiness. The village chief and Uncle Zhao were chatting in the house with Mrs. Lu's Haiheng, Mr. Wen, and others. When they heard the excitement outside, they all started laughing when they walked to the door. Lu's Haiheng was filled with envy. He patted his 2 sons on the head and said, "Did you see that they all study hard for me? You can also strive for success like Jiaran and brother Li." As a result, before he could finish speaking, he was slapped by Mrs. Lu. "You have a stupid head and can't study well. Now you will blame the child." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 524. Chapter 524 A Happy Time That Needs to Be Frozen. Lu's Haiheng hugged his head. The prestige he had just established was so easily destroyed by his father. Jimin and Jiaja snickered, and then rushed into the yard to play with Jian, Jiaxi, and Cat brother. Soon, the naughty army successfully gathered together, and they ran to do whatever they wanted. The village chief also waved his pipe and pot, laughing and scolding the boys in the village, "Hurry up and put Jiaran and brother Li down, don't throw our scholar." The boys smiled and sent Jiaran and brother Li up the steps, and then dispersed laughing. Jiaran and brother Li quickly arranged their clothes and then saluted the elders. "Okay, good boy, get up quickly." Mrs. Lu quickly reached out and helped Jiaran up. The village chief also helped brother Li up, and then led them into the house, followed by Mrs. Li, Mr. Li, and others. At that time, the room was filled with people, talking and laughing, and it was so lively that the roof of the house was lifted. Huaniyang brought in several fruit plates, which contained cut jade melons and golden fruits. The village chief was afraid that everyone would misunderstand, so he quickly said, "I bought this from the big locust tree. We haven't dared to pick it in the melon garden yet. In a few days, I will go and present it to the emperor, and treat him to the first meal, then we can open the park." Everyone nodded in agreement and took the jade melon and golden fruit to eat. Maybe they ate them again after a year, and everyone thought they tasted good. Old man Lu thought more. Many people in the court, or privately among wealthy families, often mentioned the Zhongshan house and felt that the emperor was too partial to the Li family. But, why don't they look at what the Li family does? Even if it is a melon, the emperor has to wait for the first bite before he is willing to open the garden and sell it. This kind of loyalty and gratitude is really rare. Look at them again, they only want to squeeze benefits from the emperor, but they never think about giving anything back to the emperor. Whoever becomes the emperor, I am afraid he will also like the Li family more than those guys who sing praises on their lips but are greedy and shameless in their hearts. In the yard, the women in the village have almost finished all the chores. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru put on their aprons and started frying. There were so many women, it was inevitable to chat, and it was such a festive time, so after a while, the kitchen was as lively as if a pot was boiling. Jiyan hadn't seen Mrs. Wen for a long time, so she rushed into her aunt's arms to act like a baby, then saluted Mrs. Lu, cheated a sky blue safety buckle and hung it on her waist, then she hugged the snack box with a smile and went to play with her brothers. Jimin and Jiaja were looking at the 2 brothers Jian and Jiaxi with envy. They were planning to go home and ask their grandfather to let them follow them to Quanzhou. Brother Cat was very frustrated because he had been making trouble for 2 days, but his family refused to let him go south with his 2 brothers. Jiyan came over and saw his brothers sitting on the big tree at the entrance of the village, so he started clamoring to get up. Shui Ling was also very courageous. She carried her little master on her back and climbed up. On a tree trunk as thick as a bowl, there were 5 children sitting in a row. There was a fat girl between the 4 boys. No matter how you looked at it, you felt so happy. Jian opened the snack box and started eating among them. The snacks were crispy and sweet, and even the cat brother forgot about his frustration just now. On a hot summer day, there is nothing more comfortable than sitting on a tree trunk, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the shade, and eating snacks. Jian couldn't help but sigh, it would be great if there was a camera. Take a photo of this moment. When they grow up and go their separate ways, you can still remember such a happy time when you were young when you see the photo. After finishing the snacks, Dongmei also came over. She jumped up on the rocks under the tree, hugged the good news, and then said with a smile, "Dinner is served at home." The fourth lady made braised lion heads. "Young men, please go back quickly. Late if you don't get it, you can't catch it." The four boys' eyes shone at that moment, they slid down the tree trunk and ran home. When Mrs. Lu saw that her two sons' satin gowns were all scratched, she complained angrily to them. Finally, she said to Mrs. Li, "It's better to be a girl. These two boys in my family are driving me to death." Mrs. Li hugged her fat granddaughter and shook her head dumbfounded. "Other people's daughters may be quiet and well behaved, but ours is also a little devil. Look at this dress, she changed it just this morning, and it was stained by her grass. The stains, I'm afraid they won't be washed away." Everyone laughed. Naughty children really do not distinguish between men and women. Mr. Lu called his grandson forward and said, "I was delayed because of something earlier. I will send them to Luoan in a few days, with Jiaran and brother Li as companions. They don't need much, they only learn from Jiaran and brother Li. We have a lot of incense in our house." Li Lao hurriedly said, "Jimin and Jiuji are both good kids, but they are just a little playful. Luoan Academy has a liberal style of study and the husband is also knowledgeable. He doesn't just force the children to study hard, which is really good. It's okay for the two children to go to school. We still have a canteen at home. We live in the dormitory and eat in the canteen. We don't have to worry about anything." Li Lao-san also said, "Our family also has a yard outside the academy. It is convenient for the boys to go out and live occasionally." Mrs. Lu hurriedly said, "Our family has a yard in Luoan town for a long time. We will send someone to take care of it in the past few days. From now on, the two boys will be in the academy, so you won't have to worry too much. But that yard is idle when I give Yuru the key. If there are many people in our family, we can live there occasionally and treat it as our own home." Mrs. Li didn't refuse, and said with a smile, "Okay, let the boys come over occasionally to make trouble. The house will be empty for too long, there will be no popularity, and it will easily become dilapidated. The two families are well connected, and everything can be explained in just a few sentences without too many polite greetings." Soon, the banquet was served. There were men in the front yard, women and children in the backyard, and villagers in the yard. Although there are many people, everything has been arranged. At once, the wine bowls were brought up, and everyone congratulated the two talented men. Jiaran and brother Li blushed, but they still returned the favor generously. Li Zhensheng and Li Lao's eyes were slightly red-rimmed. Is there anything in this world that makes the elders happier than their children's success? Everyone was eating, drinking, talking and laughing, and it was extremely lively. Li Lao and Li Zhensheng took Jiaran and brother Li to each table to toast and thank the folks for their love. In the backyard, the women were impatient with the stuffy heat in the house and held a banquet under the grape trellis. They didn't drink, so they finished eating quickly. Mrs. When asked, "When will Jian and Jiaxi go south with the ship? I'm afraid these two boys will be very happy." "Leaving in 3 or 2 days, Mrs. Li replied, "These two boys are so anxious that they wish they could grow wings and fly away immediately." Fortunately, Ji Yi and Lu Yang have followed the fleet several times, and they are facing each other on the road. I am familiar with the matter and can restrain them, otherwise I would be really worried. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 525. Chapter 525. A loving mother has many failed sons. Mrs. Liu advised, every kid is like this, it's impossible to contain them. Not to mention Jian and Jia 11, even Ms. Hyman and Jiuji are probably worried about something, and they might be planning to make trouble. My family promised them to go with me. But it's impossible for the family to follow their wishes, and it has to be this time next year. Yes, going out is no better than at home. They still need to calm down and temper themselves. Tao Hongying also agreed. Zhao Yuru sighed, the children haven't even gone out yet, and I started to miss them. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. There is no way, all mothers in the world feel the same way. No wonder there is an old saying, we can't leave the child to our care. A loving mother will lose her son. In this way, everyone is sitting under the grape trellis, talking and laughing like this, and the wind is blowing, which is quite relaxing. When the sun set in the west, the men in the front yard dispersed. Li Zhensheng and Li Lao finally got what they wanted. They were both too drunk to see off their guests. Fortunately, although it was a big banquet today, the people who came to the door were all members of my own family, so no one found fault. Li Lao-san brought Jiren and brother Li to see off the guests at the door, occasionally chatting and laughing with everyone. When everyone was gone, Jiren and brother Li subconsciously rubbed their faces. It really makes my face freeze with laughter. Li Lao-san patted his nephews on the shoulders in a funny way. Now that you have supported our family, we should gradually get used to this kind of entertainment. The more times we do it, the more we will get used to it. Jiren and brother Li nodded. They were a little dizzy after being given a glass of wine just now, so they quickly went back to their rooms to sleep. Soon, the inside and outside of the courtyard were cleaned up, and the villagers went back to rest. Li's courtyard fell into a kind of silence after the prosperity. Mrs. Li was originally going to put her arms around her granddaughter to coax her to sleep, but she snored first. She is an older person after all. She has been worried about Jiren and brother Li for a few days before the exam. Now that the dust has finally settled, she is completely relieved and can't help but feel tired. Jiyan was too full to eat and felt a little uncomfortable in her stomach. She hadn't been back for a long time and couldn't sleep at the moment. So she quietly got down to the ground. Shui Ling was dozing outside and was startled when she suddenly saw her young master. Miss, where are you going? Jiyan thought about it for a while and then asked, Shui Ling, do you want to go home? I'll be home tonight and come back tomorrow. Although it's a bit rushed, at least I can go back and have a look. Okay, Shui Ling nodded repeatedly, extremely happy. But she still remembered the business and asked, Miss, do you have any errands for me? Let's go to the next door. If you can't go home by yourself, it's best if Uncle Das Han takes you. Jiyan took Shuiling's hand and went straight to the next door. When passing by the front yard, Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying were talking under the eaves, and they simply asked. They heard that they were going to the next door, so they didn't stop them. Dongmei was drying the quilt. They had been gone for a few days. The quilt was placed in a box and had a vague smell of staleness. After it was dried in the sun, it became soft and smelled like sunshine. Yashan was doing carpentry work at the door of the wing, carving a wooden sword in his hand. When the couple saw their young master approaching, they both stood up and stepped forward to greet him. Jiyan took them under the eaves of the veranda and talked about going to Zhenjiazhuang to select some manpower for the brothers. Yashan and Dongmei have discussed this matter privately for a long time. Even if the young master doesn't come over to give instructions today, they will still start to organize things. Jiyan's requirements are very simple. Except for Jiren, who has a son who works as a book boy, the rest of the brothers in the family have no book boys or servants. On weekdays in the academy, the brothers gather together, but they don't think it's a big deal. But if you walk around in the future and there is no one around to help you, it will be impossible. Especially this time, Jian and Jiaxi are going out. Going out is difficult, so it never hurts to be more prepared. Although Brother Li and Brother Cat are in the academy, they cannot favor one over the other. So, we need 7 people from Zhenjiazhuang this time. No matter how old or young you are, you must have practiced martial arts and be able to protect yourself and your master. Like Brother Li and Brother Mao, it is best to find people of the same age who can grow together, become more loyal in the future, and get along happily. Jian and Jiaxi's tempers are too erratic. It's best to find 2 people who are steady and can help with a few words of advice when something goes wrong. Jia Huan usually stays at the restaurant, neither going out nor studying. He needs someone who is quiet, or someone with good knife skills, who might be able to help cut vegetables when he is busy. As for Jiren, it would be safer to add a slightly older person to accompany him. It would be safer to go out occasionally or deal with some small things. Finally, it's family justice. Let Uncle Das Han take him with him. After all, no matter how mysterious and powerful Zhenjiazhuang is, there is not necessarily a kid who can catch his eye. So many complicated conditions are really troublesome. But Yashin heard it very carefully and repeated it again at the end. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, he got up to find Ji Yi. Shui Ling also took the time to go back and pack the package. She and Shui Yun have saved some wages and a few pieces of good materials in the past few months. At the host's house, they are well fed and well clothed, and these things are basically of no use. Sending them back to support the family this time is also to let the family know that they are doing well and don't need to worry about them. When the sky was full of sunset, Yeshan drove the carriage and pulled Shui Ling. Ji Yi and Lu Yang followed on horseback, and set off towards Zhenjiazhuang. At noon on the second day, Jiren and Brother Li were dragged by Jian and others to the orchard for a walk. It was a rare family occasion and they did not go to the restaurant, so they stayed at home to rest for a day. The brothers found a lot of black star seedlings in the orchard and picked strings of black stars. When they ate, their mouths were stained with a circle of black, as if they had grown beards. The lapels of the gown were also tied with dense clusters of cocklebur seeds. Jiren rarely got naughty with his brothers, and he was happy, but now he felt sorry for his clothes. So he called his brothers to wash their hands by the river outside the village and tidy up their clothes. It rained a few days ago, and the river finally got rid of the fate of drying up at any time. Although it is still a trickle now, it is much better than before. As soon as the boys washed away the black stains on their mouths, they became restless. They jumped into the river to have a water fight, dug sand into the pond to catch fish, and started playing crazily again. Jiren was lying on the big rock on the shore with a straw hat on his face, feeling drowsy from the sun. At this time, a carriage with 2 horses turned in outside the archway. The boys thought they had guests, so they all jumped on the shore and looked around. As a result, I heard Ji Yi greeting me with a smile, "I'm not at home, are you stealing good food behind my back? Don't think that I won't know if you wash your mouth." Jia Ren and the others also laughed, and Jia 11, Jia and Mao Gear stepped forward and shouted that they wanted to ride horses with their brothers. Ji Yi and Lu Yang simply dismounted and let their brothers sit on the horses. Jiaxi and Jian have a horse, Li Geer and Cat brother have a horse. The 4 of them are really happy. Jiren and Jiawen also stepped forward and walked home with their brothers. In just a moment, everyone entered the village. They didn't wait for Jia and Jiaxi to get off their horses. As soon as the carriage door opened, many people jumped out with a clatter. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 526. Chapter 526, There are too many boys from the old Li family. Everyone was startled at first, but when they saw that the last person who jumped out was actually the smiling Shui Ling, they felt relieved. Jiaran guessed that these people were brought by his younger sister. After all, she was the only one in the family who could control Yeshan and Shui Ling. As expected, before Jiaran and others could ask, Shui Ling said first, "Young master, Miss asked us to go back to Zhenjiazhuang to find some manpower for the young masters." The people who jumped out of the car earlier included 5 boys in their early teens and a middle-aged man in his 30s. They all looked neat and capable, wearing shorts and shorts. They knew that the Li brothers in front of them were their future masters, so they all bowed down and saluted. Jiaran was close, so he stretched out his hand to help the man in his 30s, and then greeted him, "From now on, we are all family members. Don't be polite. Let's talk in the room first." After saying this, he took his brothers in first, followed by Shui Ling, Yeshan, and others. Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru were sewing in the main room, trying to make 2 more pairs of shoes for Jian and Jia 11 before they went out. When out on the boat, there is water everywhere, so your clothes and shoes will get wet from time to time. The clothes are fine, but the soaked shoes and socks are too uncomfortable and can easily lead to disease, so you still need to prepare a few more pairs to replace them. There are also family obligations that cannot be left behind, and Lu Yang also has to take care of her sister-in-law Liu's fat boy has just learned to crawl and is getting naughty. Sister-in-law Lu still has to take care of the errands in the hot spring valley. She really doesn't have the time to take care of her. My eldest son Jiyan has been learning needlework for a few days and is now helping out. Unfortunately, she was afraid of hurting her hand when using the scissors, and she didn't have enough strength to use the needle and thread to fix the solace, so in the end she had to help paste the solace. The so-called shoe solace are to glue together the scraps and old cloths accumulated at home, layer after layer, and become hard after being dried in the sun. Thicker ones are used as solace, and thinner ones are used as uppers. In fact, with the current life of the Li family, there is no need to be so frugal at all, but they are used to living a hard life, and even if they become rich, they are still reluctant to spend lavishly. It would be a pity to throw away the rags and old clothes at home. It is better to use waste materials to make shoes. When you step on them, you won't be able to tell whether they are good or bad. Besides, the boys are so naughty that even if they make shoes from good cloth, they cannot be worn for more than a few days. Either the big toes come out and look at the sky, or the heels are worn out. Jiyan sat on the carpet, smearing paste and patching pieces of cloth in a decent manner, showing rare patience. This prompted Zhao Yuru to praise, "My Fu Niu is so smart. She can do so well after just one lesson." Fortunately, she was born a daughter. If she had been a boy, she might still be able to compete with Jiaran for the top prize. Mrs. Li beamed when she heard this, "Isn't that right? I have only been studying for a few days, and Fu Niu knows all the ordinary words spoken by Madame Hui." And he interrupted at the side and said with a smile, "Miss has read most of the books that the second master bought back, and she remembers them all clearly." This morning, Master Jian and Master Jiaxi made a wrong allusion, the lady helped correct it. Zhao Yuru sighed after hearing this, these 2 boys are really getting so much good food for nothing. They have been studying for so long, why are they not as good as Fu Niu who has just started to learn? Send them away quickly, send them to the beach to fish, they may be tired. It will take a few days to get better. Mrs. Li made no secret of her disdain for her 2 grandsons. People say they eat more fish to replenish their brains. I'm afraid they have to dive into the sea and eat all the fish to become smarter. Everyone laughed, but when they looked up, they saw a group of people coming in from outside the door. Tao Hongying almost pricked her hand with the needle in her hand, and she had to rush to protect her mother-in-law and daughter. She felt relieved when she saw clearly that it was Jiaran and the others walking in front. However, he was happy at the good news. He jumped up and walked to the door. "Uncle Dashan, you are back." Yashin nodded with a smile, stepped forward and replied, "Yes, miss, the manpower has been selected. I will keep it to your satisfaction." Grandma Li, Tao Hongying, and others realized that it was the little girl who was behind the scenes again. Tao Hongying knocked her daughter on the head and said angrily, "What are you causing trouble again? If something happens, don't tell your family in advance. If you scare your grandma, I won't beat you." Mrs. Li hurriedly hugged her granddaughter and said angrily, "I'm not papery, how can I be so unscared? Besides, we, Fu Niuer, are doing this for the sake of our brothers. We are worried about our brothers going out, so we secretly give it to our brothers. Are you looking for more people?" Jiyan gave her grandma a big kiss and said proudly, "Grandma understands me best. I asked Uncle Dashan and Shuiling to go back to Zhenjiazhuang and find some reliable people to protect my brothers." Zhao Yuru said she disliked her son for being naughty and stupid, but in fact, she cared about her son more than anyone else. When she heard her little niece say this, she was extremely happy. She didn't know where Zhenjiazhuang was or what its details were. She only knew that Shuiling, Shuiyun, Zhengfeng, and Zheng He all came from Zhenjiazhuang. They were neat and smart in their actions and had good skills in their skills. But she knew that having such a person beside her son would at least put her mind at ease. Zhao Yura quickly gathered her things and said, "Put the things away and let everyone go into the house to have a rest and have a cup of tea." Mami He and Shui Yun were quick with their hands and quickly packed up the tables and chairs. At this time Li Lao heard the news and came back from the valley. The guests and hosts were seated separately. There were not enough chairs in the room, so everyone in Zhenjiazhuang stood on both sides of the door. Yashan stepped forward and replied, "Old madam, uncle, madam, I found 6 people from Zhenjiazhuang. Except for young master Ji, I couldn't find a suitable one. The other young masters happened to have one each. The young lady specifically asked me to find an older attendant for the eldest young master, so I found Zheng Sanjiang, the village owner's younger brother. He used to travel a lot and was familiar with every family in Zindu. He and manager Ye were also together. Having worked together before, it is most suitable to give it to the eldest young master." Having said that, Zheng Sanjiang stepped forward to salute and say hello. He was tall, but not burly, and could even be said to be surprisingly thin. Not only that, although his manners are thorough and his expression is respectful, his eyes always make people feel a bit dead. Death. Jiyan frowned slightly, but Yeshan was not a reckless person, so there must be a reason for this. "You can't ask now, but you'll have to ask clearly later." Mrs. Li Su didn't notice it, and said to Zheng Sanjiang, "You kid, why are you so thin? Do you feel uncomfortable somewhere? Please ask Dr. Zhang to take a look at you in the evening. Eat more in the future and take care of yourself slowly. Everything else in our family is good except that the food is delicious. Look at Shuiling, Shuiyun, Zhengfeng, and Zheng He, they have all gained weight just a short time since they came here." After saying that, she signaled Jiaran to come forward and asked, "On weekdays, even if you have something to tell Sanjiang over at the academy, don't delay Sanjiang's meal, you know." "I understand," Grandma Jiaran nodded in agreement, and then cupped hands with Zheng Sanjiang and said, "Uncle Sanjiang, I will take you to find Dr. Zhang in a moment." "Thank you, young master." Zheng Sanjiang raised his head, took a serious look at Jiaran, then lowered his head and thanked him. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 527. Chapter 527 Set Sail. Jiyan breathed a long sigh of relief in her heart. Perhaps she could feel the enthusiasm of her family, and the deathly look in Zheng Sanjiang's eyes seemed to be a little less. Yashin called the other half-grown men to come forward. "They are different from Zheng Sanjiang. They are all strong and muscular boys. They look at Mrs. Lee and others with smiles on their faces. They introduced themselves respectively. Needless to say, they all had the surname Zheng, but their names were outrageously simple. Zheng Er, Zheng Si, Zheng Wu, Zheng Lu, Zheng Qi. This will be easier to remember from now on, and it just corresponds to the ranking of the Li brothers. Jia Huan wants Zheng Er, Jia 11 wants Zheng Si, Jia N wants Zheng Wu, Li Gear wants Zheng Lu, and Mao Gear wants Zheng Qi. It's just a family fun. I have a simple and taciturn temperament, and I work in a restaurant, so I act much more steadily. Even if he was interested in the new servant, he wanted to get to know him gradually in the future, so he was not in a hurry to ask anything. But they couldn't wait for their family's peace and happiness. They felt like weeds were growing in their hearts. After hearing a few words from the elders, they ran away like a swarm of swarms with the Zheng family boys. Jiaran didn't leave either. When he came, he wanted to ask Ji Yi why he didn't choose a long-term follower. Secondly, these men are all from Zhenjiazhuang, and Zhenjiazhuang is the village given to his sister by the Marquis. Will allocating so many people at once cause trouble to Zhuangzi, or make Zhenjiazhuang alienate from his sister as the new master? Zheng Feng and Zheng Hexian saw that they were familiar with Zheng Sanjiang, so they asked their master for instructions and took Zheng Sanjiang to stay in the Ye family yard next door. It is easier to talk if you leave your family behind. Ji Yi looked unconcerned and shouted, although these people in Zhenjiazhuang are not bad, I competed with them and none of them could beat me. So I couldn't bear to choose. Instead of carrying a burden around me, I would rather not as comfortable as myself. The whole family rolled their eyes when they heard this. Let's not talk about how many people in the world are stronger than him. I just want to say that the young servant Chen Sui helps with running errands and does not carry stones and grind millstones every day. Let's find someone with stronger strength to do it. What? But Xian Ji was stubborn and would not listen to advice, so everyone decisively ignored him and stopped asking. Jiaran called his sister to his side, gently held her in his arms and asked, Fu Niuer, Zheng's village shouldn't be big. With so many people deployed, will there be no one to do the work? The good news was that the eldest brother was attentive and he said quickly, Brother, don't worry, there are many people in Zhenjiazhuang, and these people have been practicing martial arts since they were young, and they all want to come out and find a way out. When Zheng Feng and Zheng He came here to listen to their second uncle's instructions, their adoptive father said that they would choose a hand for each of you. As for me, even if I need help in the future, I can find dozens more in Zhuangzi at any time. Jiaran felt relieved and said with a smile, this is because the Marquis and Zhenjiazhuang believe in our family. Whenever someone comes over again, please remember to send a message saying that we will definitely treat these people well, so that their family can rest assured. Okay, brother, don't worry. Shui Ling, Shui Yun, and Zheng Feng and Zheng He must have said a lot when they went back. Everyone in the Zheng family village knows about the benevolence and righteousness of our family. Otherwise, Uncle Dashan wouldn't have brought back so many people so smoothly this time. Good news give the elder brother some reassurance. Sure enough, when Yeshan heard this, he nodded and said, yes, Miss is right. I heard that Zhenjiazhuang wants to select easygoing boys for the young masters. Every family really wants to send boys here. Later, it was the owner of the village who made the decision and sent Zheng Er and the others over. They are all an outstanding team among the boys in the village and have received special training. The rest of the boys still need to hone their skills. Ji Yin was curious and asked, why are there no Zheng Yi and Zheng San? Yeshan replied, Zheng Yi and Zheng San were sent out on errands by the Marquis. It has been 2 years. I don't know when they will come back. Ji Yin nodded and didn't ask any more questions. After all, it was good for the brothers to have someone on hand. At this time, Li Zhensheng actually came back from the city. Everyone was surprised, and Mrs. Li asked, why did you come back so early today? Isn't the restaurant busy? I'm busy, Li Zhensheng smiled and said, but there is not much seafood in stock. I want the fleet to leave early, so I came back to see how the boys are preparing. Mrs. Li immediately said, Fu Niu is afraid that our brothers will suffer hardships on the road. We just found a servant and are ready. The fleet can set off at any time if it wants to. Tao Hongying also smiled and said, there are a lot of kids in the family, and if we add these little ones, it will cause a big stir. Send Jian and Jiaxi on the boat, and the family can be quiet for a while. Everyone laughed. This was really nonsense. Wrong. The Li family seems to have dug out a nest of children. 7 children were born in the 4th house, and only one girl, Jian, was born. Now that the 7 boys all have long-term servants, 7 more have been added to the family. It's really doubled the excitement and doubled the headaches. They must be separated quickly. Those who should go south, and those who should go back to the academy should go back to the academy. Li Zhensheng said, Mom, there is nothing big going on here in the restaurant. This time I will go south with you to see the business in Quanzhou. That's what he said, but Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Zhao Yuru all knew that he was worried about the children and planned to them personally. Tao Hongying and Zhao Yuru were very grateful. Zhao Yuru hurriedly said, Brother, Yu Jiyi and Lu Yang are here. You don't have to follow. Don't delay the restaurant business. Li Zhensheng waved his hand, I told you, it's for Quanzhou's business, not for a few boys. Mrs. Li patted her 2 daughters-in-law and persuaded them, don't persuade them. Your eldest brother knows better. When the boys grow up, he can just be more filial to his uncle. The matter was settled at this point, and the whole family had a reunion dinner that night. Early on the next morning, the 2 carriages of the Li family set out together. First send Li Zhensheng, Jia 11, Jia An, Jia Yi, Lu Yang and others to the dock. The Li family's small fleet has prepared water and cargo, picked up the masters and set off immediately. Li Lao brought Jiaran, Jiawan, brother Li and brother Mao to watch them off at the pier, waving from a distance. Brother Cat was very frustrated, so Li Lao coaxed him, second uncle also wants to go, but wait a few months, during the winter vacation, second uncle will take the 4 of you brothers and set off immediately. Brother Cat is indeed happy, and brother Jiaran and brother Li also see smiling faces. Only Jia Huan responded with a smile, second uncle, please take your eldest brother and younger brothers. The restaurant is too busy and I can't leave. Li Lao slapped him and said angrily, the restaurant is busy, so I asked your uncle to hire a cook. Could it be that without you, the restaurant will not be able to do business? You are a man, not a man with a Kong head. You must go out for a walk. Open your eyes. Jia Huan scratched the back of his head and said nothing. After chatting for a while, they also got into the carriage and sent Jiaran, brother Li and brother Mao back to the academy. After returning to the city and leaving behind family fun, Li Lao returned to Broken Gold Beach. Jiyan suddenly lost his brothers as playmates, and was still a little uncomfortable. He always felt that everything was empty. Simply, she called Shui Ling and Shui Yun, and together they harmed the dough and tried to bake cookies. When Li Lao arrived home, he could smell the sweet smell in the yard before entering. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the door, my little niece came to offer Bauer, second uncle, I baked cookies. Second uncle, come and eat. He smiled and ruffled his niece's hair. Just as he was about to enter the house, the village chief came over. Everyone welcomed the village chief and sat down, tasted the biscuits and praised him a few times. The village chief said, Uncle, go and offer melons to the emperor tomorrow. I was walking in the field just now and accidentally came across a jade melon, which exploded. The melon pulp inside was bright red, and it was definitely ripe. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 528. Chapter 528, Escape. Li Lao sent the children away and felt that nothing had happened. After thinking about it, he said, "Okay, uncle, I will ask someone to ask Mr. Wen first. Tomorrow is not a big court meeting, and if the emperor is there, there will be nothing important. Let's go and offer melons. Village chief, I just made a new set of clothes a few days ago. I will put them on tomorrow and let the emperor see. Our village is living well now because of the emperor's blessing." Li Lao called Zhang Feng at that time. After explaining a few words carefully, Zhang Feng entered the city. Jiyan is thinking about the Marquis and his father who are away on an expedition. They have only been away for 2 or 3 months, and they don't know if they will be forgotten by the emperor, or if there are courtiers who are secretly trying to accuse Xiao Hei's hung behind his back. She just wanted to enter the palace, fight a boss for her adoptive father, and find a sense of presence. So she hugged her second uncle's arm and shook it. "Second uncle, I want to go too, to deliver melons to Uncle Huang." Tao Hongying thought that her daughter was playing tricks on her, and was afraid that she would cause trouble if she entered the palace. Since the Marquis was not around, no one would be able to help if something happened. She advised, "Fu Niuer, don't go. It's hot and we don't know how long we have to wait outside the palace gate. If you want to go out for fun, can mom take you to a restaurant?" Jiyan refused, and tried his best to fight for it. "Mom, Broken Gold Beach is my fiefdom, and there are watermelons growing there. It's just right for me to give them to Uncle Huang. Uncle Huang is very good, and I won't make him angry." Mrs. Li felt sorry for her granddaughter and thought this was reasonable, so she advised her daughter-in-law, "Just listen to Fu Niuer. She is getting older and will have to move around the palace in the future. This time I'm offering melons again, it's a serious matter." Broken Gold Beach was given to Fu Niuer by the emperor. Now that the melons and fruits have been produced, Fu Niuer should personally send them to the emperor to taste. Li Lao and the village chief also nodded, and the village chief smiled and said, "It's okay for Fu Niuer to go together. In case the emperor summons us, we will have confidence. Otherwise, the emperor is so majestic that I feel trembling even when I speak." Tao Hongying looked at her smiling daughter, still worried that she would get into trouble, but her mother-in-law, village chief, and second uncle all said so, and she could not stop her anymore. She could only say, "Go if you want, but remember to be cautious, your adoptive father is not here, you get into trouble in the palace or are bullied, but no one comes to save you." "I know, Mom, don't worry, Fu Niuer is smart, so she won't suffer." Jiyan quickly hugged my mother and acted coquettishly. Li Lao wanted to go for a walk in the melon fields with the village chief. Jiyan Pitianpian followed behind and quickly escaped from his mother's devil's claws. Tao Hongying couldn't laugh or cry when she saw her daughter rolling out of the door. Zhao Yura quickly took her away to find clothes and jewelry for Jiyan to wear tomorrow. Mrs. Li was concerned about it and then joined in. Jiyan wore a big straw hat and covered her little face tightly, for fear that she would show off her yin and yang face again, which would cause embarrassment to the whole city tomorrow. Shui Ling was afraid that the little master would trip, so he picked up the little master and rushed to the shack where he was watching the melons. It happened that Yeshan was helping to pull weeds not far away, so Jiyan called him to come forward and chat. "Uncle Das Han, that Uncle Sanjiang doesn't talk much and seems to be very scary. Last night, my eldest brother took him to check Grandpa Zhang's pulse, and Grandpa Zhang said he was fine. It was really strange." Jiyan sat on the wooden bed in the shack, kicking his calves. Jiyan Zhenchen asked. Shui Ling also nodded and whispered, "Yes, Uncle Sanjiang has always had a cold face. I have been afraid of him since I was a child." Yashin naturally knew everything about his master, so he said, "I know a little about this matter. Just like Zheng Er and the others, Sanjiang was also a small team more than 10 years ago. But when he went out on errands, something went wrong in Sanjiang. As a result, the entire team died, and only he was saved by his teammates. He may have been feeling guilty and had the root of his illness. If the Marquis hadn't ordered him to live, he would have gone to find his brothers under Jaquin after taking revenge. But even though he is alive now, he doesn't have a family and doesn't talk much apart from training the boys in the village. He only eats and sleeps. The owner of the village felt sorry for his younger brother, and this time he sent his best boys out again, so he asked someone to take care of him and forced him to follow him out. I felt sad when I heard the good news. No wonder this man had a look of death in his eyes. I'm afraid his heart has long been buried with his brothers, and he is like a walking zombie. Shui Ling even covered her mouth and her eyes were red. Uncle Sanjiang is so pitiful. When we were children, we said he looked like a zombie. Ji Yin quickly comforted her, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Our house is lively. Maybe Uncle Sanjiang will get over it after staying here for a while." She actually said casually that she really had no confidence in saving a dead-hearted person. But Shui Ling took it seriously, with a look of excitement and joy on his face, and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes. Our family is the best. If Uncle Sanjiang lives here for a long time, he will definitely become more humane, and maybe he will get a wife and have children. Ha ha ha, by then, he won't want to die." I grinned after hearing the good news. I really didn't want to dampen this child's confidence. Let the days pass slowly, who knows what will happen in the future. Even if Zheng Sanjiang does not live up to Shuiling's expectations, as long as he does his best for the Li family will never leave him homeless. Li Lauer and the village chief walked around the melon field and brought back another cracked jade melon. The weather is hot and there is not enough rain. No matter how diligently the villagers carry water and keep watering, this situation is still inevitable. Fortunately, the garden is about to open, and after selling it, I put the money in my pocket, and I feel at ease. The village chief smiled and took out the hatchet behind the shack door, put it in the bucket and washed it, and then cut the jade melon for everyone to try. As a result, the boys in the school were out of school, and whether they were smelling the sweet smell or suddenly wanting to join in the fun, they ran over like a swarm of swarms. Ji Yin saw it from a distance and immediately jumped on Shuiling's back, shouting, "Shuiling, come home quickly. I haven't seen Sanjia for a long time. Did it get lost? Let's go look for it." "Oh, good." Shuiling was convinced that he had it, and responded as he walked, "I didn't see Sanjo today. Could it be that he went to the village to steal chickens?" Under the grape trellis in the space, Sanjo was taking a pleasant nap when he suddenly sneezed and woke himself up. It looked around, its little face full of doubts, but after looking around, there was only a little green snake spitting out its head in the cage. There seemed to be nothing unusual. Thinking of the sweet dream that had just been interrupted, it became annoyed, so it jumped up, swung its tail, and kept spinning the cage like a top, and then continued to curl up and fall asleep. Poor little green snake suddenly felt like he was on a roller coaster. His tongue was stuck out of his mouth and he couldn't take it back for a long time. While feeling dizzy, it really had a million things that it couldn't figure out. Who did it offend? It wants to go home, it wants to find its mother. Besides, Li Lauer and the village chief couldn't guess why Ji Yin ran away. They both couldn't stop laughing. The naughty boys don't know yet, but in Ji Yin's eyes, they are more terrifying than tigers. One person shared a piece of jade melon and squatted outside the shack, chewing it with great satisfaction. Early on the next morning, Ji Yin was dressed neatly and got into a carriage with his second uncle, followed by the village chief driving a mule cart. Daking, who has suffered a lot, has now grown fat and strong. Now he is pulling a cart, which is carrying a big basket of jade melons and golden fruits. He goes into the city to offer melons in a majestic and high-spirited manner. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 529. Chapter 529. There is no regret medicine in the world. Offering melons to the palace is a major event every year. For the 4 places to the carriage, the boys in the village guessed for half an hour before deciding on the 4 winners. For this matter, the 4 victors have raised their tails to the sky in the past few days, making the other losers' teeth itch, their fists rattling, and they wish they could be taught the rules of entering the palace first. It's a pity that the village chief had already told him not to use his fists, otherwise he would be beaten until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen. When he walked out, he would be embarrassed by the whole village. In the hot summer, even if the sun has just risen, the earth is so hot that your feet are burning. The cicadas were all a bit listless, but the number of idlers in the tea house continued unabated. Humans are social animals, so they can eat and drink poorly, and wear simple clothes, but if they close their mouths and confine themselves for a few days, that is absolutely not allowed. After all, I haven't heard yet who the new husband the little widow at the end of the street is looking for is called, and what he does for a living. A certain 3rd-grade official married a concubine in the 6th house. I don't know whether the mistress is suffering from a mental illness or a real illness. Not to mention that there was a huge quarrel in the court over tax reduction and exemption, and these people had not even given a few words of advice or expressed their opinions. In short, life can be tough, but you must eat it. And just before 3 o'clock in the morning, the real melon also entered Beijing. This cart is green and golden, and it is placed on the cartboard. There are many melon vines decorated around it, which looks fresh. In order for the emperor to eat immediately after being sent to the palace, there were 2 buckets of ice in the car, containing a jade melon and a dozen golden fruits. When the sun shines, there is a faint chill. It looks cool no matter how you look at it, which makes people extremely enviable. The street leading to the palace was originally the busiest, but because of this car, it suddenly became even busier. At first, a little boy was sleepy. In order to wake up, he ran to the door to blow in the air. As a result, when he saw the Li family's carriage and mule carriage from a distance, he became excited and shouted loudly, "Oh, Sujintan has come to the palace to offer melons." What? Sujintan came to the palace to offer melons. Oh, the melon garden is open, you can go buy melons. A guest sitting by the window heard the movement, turned around and shouted in surprise. The guests in the tea house rushed to the door, took a closer look, and became happy. What a piece of melon that breaks the golden beach. The park is finally open, my eyes are really red with anticipation. Hurry up and buy some, I've been waiting to give you gifts. Don't panic, wait for me. Everyone was talking and laughing and gearing up. They waited until this moment and wanted to rush to buy a few to take home. In fact, 10 days ago, jade melons and golden fruits were sold on the market. But how can I put it, the taste is not that bad, but it is much different from the taste in memory. The taste in my memory is the clear and sweet taste produced by Rujintan. Just do it if someone says it, and has already sent the servant chief to line up at Broken Gold Beach. Those who did not have any entourage with them, or who were living a normal life at home, also hurried out of the city and went to line up in person. Broken Gold Beach has been selling jade melons and golden fruits for 2 years, and everyone has figured out the way. Whether it is the Li family of Broken Gold Beach or the common people of Zincan, they never look at the identity and background of the buyers, let alone sell jade melons and golden fruits in bulk. They only sell on a per-person basis, and one person can buy up to 2 jade melons or 10 golden fruits. This amount is enough to give as a favor as a gift, or to feed the whole family a fresh meal. If you want to buy and sell, you can do it, but just a few in a day will never make anyone make a fortune. By doing this, Sujintan naturally hopes that more people will eat the fruits they grow and enjoy the blessings of Sujintan's feng shui treasure land. Instead of letting those resellers in the middle drive up the price of melons, you can make a lot of money. The village sent off the team that went to the palace to offer melons, and they had already made plans. Nearly all men, women, and children came out to surround the melon fields, and no customers who came to buy were allowed to enter the melon fields at will. Outside the melon field, there were two stalls, one selling jade melons and the other selling golden fruits. The prices of jade melons and golden fruits are the same as in previous years, but this year extra wicker baskets will be given. The basket was filled with hay to ensure that even if the jade melons and golden fruits were put in, they would not be damaged even if they were bumped. Li Zheng from the Weisha village, Dawangzhuang and Xiaoangzhuang also brought villagers over, and set up 3 stalls under the shade of trees not far away, selling jade melons and golden fruits from their own villages. Everything in the world has always been about hard work and reward. Especially in matters in the fields, there is no possibility of deception. People in the new village carried water and watered the fields 3 times under the scorching sun, taking care of every melon vine. Although this year's jasper melons are smaller, they are green and round in color. The golden fruits were originally golden, but now they are darker, with a little orange-red color. Both kinds of melons look so good that people can't help but salivate when they see them. However, the jade melons and golden fruits in Weisha village, Dawangzhuang and Xiaoangzhuang vividly explain what crooked melons and cracked fruits are. The shape of the jade melons are some long, some square, and some half-tilted. The golden ones are as big as a fist with a navel bulging. Even without tasting it, everyone knows that it is definitely not satisfactory. So, these 3 stalls must wait until the Zinkun side is sold out before they can open, and the prices must be reduced by half. The scene in the Weisha village is waving a pipe and pot, and he wants to knock the heads of the nearby villagers into the same hairstyle as Sakyamuni. He really hates that iron cannot become steel, complaining and cursing, "I asked you to carry water to water the ground, and you are all lazy. Either you have a headache or a pain in the buttocks. The pole feels like burning your shoulders. You are not willing to carry water at all. I am an old man and almost you yelled until your throat was broken, and you just barely finished watering the ground. Last year you said that the new village was hiding something private, and the melon vines given to us were not good. This year you saw with your own eyes that the melon vines planted by others were the same as ours, but this was the result in autumn. Do you feel hurt? The folks in my new village are more diligent than you and are never lazy. Even if they plant dog shit, flowers will bloom. If you plant a gold ingot, it will turn into pig shit." Li Zheng from Dawangzhuang and Xiaoangzhuang also sighed. Dawangzhuang Lijhan said, "If you don't work hard, how can good things grow in this land? It will be too late this year. Anyone who dares to be lazy next year will be kicked out of the village directly." All the villagers were so scolded that they did not dare to refute a word. At the Zinkan side, silver coins were jingling and being thrown into money boxes, and there was a long queue in front of the stalls, but no one was paying attention to them here, and no one felt good. Had they known this, they would have worked hard in the spring. Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in the world. Mrs. Li had nothing to do at home, so she brought Shui Yun to deliver a large bucket of honey and passion fruit drink to Guadi, with ice cubes added of course. The weather was hot, so Ji Yin also taught Shui Yun how to make ice. This summer at home, there was no shortage of ice and it was very cool. The villagers were sweating profusely, but all their faces were smiling. They took a big pottery bowl, scooped up ice water and drank it all. One of the villagers quietly motioned to Mrs. Li to look at the money box, and said in a low voice, "Aunt Li, look, there is a lot of money." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 530. Chapter 530. It's big and sweet, but if it doesn't taste good, it doesn't cost any money. Mrs. Lee also responded with a smile, yes, everyone has not been tired this year in vain. When the money is divided at the end of the year, when it is time to marry a wife, he will marry a wife, and when it is time to make new clothes, he will make 2 new sets of clothes. When we go out wearing a new coat, who wouldn't envy our broken gold beach? The villagers became more and more excited after hearing this, and Dion ran to continue picking and transporting melons. Although the sweat beads on my face fell to the ground and broke into 8 pieces, the sound was full of joy. The village chief was not at home, so Uncle Zhao took over the responsibility of selling melons. Now he was standing behind the stall with a cane, his face brightened by 3 points. Mrs. Lee walked up to him and said, "Brother, please remember to leave some for our family. We will send gifts to the academy tomorrow. The Wen family and the Lu family will also send someone to tell them how much they need. Don't worry, old lady, I've already sent someone to deliver a message to Mr. Wen and Mr. Lu. They both said they would send someone over soon, and they were afraid that they would not get anything if they arrived too late," Uncle Zhao said with a smile. His lips were grinning from ear to ear, and his eyes were full of pride. The harvest season always makes people extremely happy and satisfied. Standing next to the money box, Lu Biatu suddenly remembered something and asked, "Old madam, do you want to leave some more melons for the marquis? I'm afraid the marquis's leaving gift will be even more." Just as Mrs. Lee was about to respond, she saw the buyers in line pricking up their ears and looking over eagerly. As if she was afraid that if she said that the home mansion wanted to keep more melons, they would not be able to buy them. She quickly said, "There is no need to leave it to the marquis mansion, Zhuangzi has arrangements there." Although Mrs. Lee didn't say Zhenjia Zhuang, Biatulu and Uncle Zhao understood it clearly. After all, Guiyang was originally Zhenjia Zhuang. The one sent to Zhenjia Zhuang will definitely be planted this year, which will be enough for the marquis mansion to give as gifts. The buyers breathed a sigh of relief and smiled and chatted with each other. "Old madam, there are only a few acres of melon land. Don't give it away everywhere. Keep it and sell it to us. My wife likes to eat this golden fruit and has talked about it several times. I also plan to buy it tomorrow and the next day. Woolen cloth. Yes, old lady, can't you sell us more at one time? We have to queue up every day." "Yes, I live in the north of the city. I plan to come and guard the city gate when it opens tomorrow morning." Everyone was talking excitedly because they just wanted to buy more. Mrs. Lee explained with a smile, "Everyone likes the melons grown in our village. We are very happy, and of course we want to sell more. But everyone has also seen that our village only has a few acres of land, and the melons grown in our village are not that big many. With such a limited quantity, everyone can buy a few and taste the taste of the melons grown in our feng shui treasure land. If there is no limit, I am afraid that a big family in the city will take advantage of it. Of course, it will be easier for us. You can't be filial to me at that time, can you?" Everyone nodded quickly. They really thought wrong just now. The limit is limited to them, but it also limits the wealthy households. Zinken may seem unkind, but they try hard to put them on an equal footing with the rich and powerful. Let's not talk about how lively it is here in the melon garden, let's just talk about how lively it is in the palace. Because of this year's drought, the emperor is also a little impatient. Although there were many ice basins placed in the imperial study room, the coolness could not relieve the boredom in his heart. The chief came in from outside and glanced at the emperor quietly. He saw that he was not reviewing the memorial, but was looking out the window in a trance with a cup of herbal tea. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward with a smile and reported, "Your Majesty, Princess Kangol and Uncle Li from Sujintan are here with people to offer melons and fruits." The emperor came back to his senses and asked subconsciously, "Such a dry weather, the melon garden in Sujintan was not affected?" The chief responded quickly, back to the emperor, "It should not be affected at all." The old slave saw it at a glance, the jade melons are emerald green and the golden fruits are so beautiful that my eyes are almost drooling. When the emperor heard what he said, he suddenly felt an appetite when he thought of the jade melon that quenches thirst and relieves heat. He ordered, "Why don't we bring people in? It's too hot outside. Princess Kangal is my cousin's precious daughter. Just in case. It's sunburned. When my cousin comes back, I'm afraid he'll have to settle the score with me. Oh, old slave, hurry up and go. I'm afraid I can't hold up the marquee feat with my body," the chief joked, which made the emperor laugh, and then he hurried out to invite people. Soon, Jiyan, Li Lao and the village chief who were waiting outside were ushered into the imperial study room. Li Lao and the village chief each carried a wooden bucket, while Jiyan had two empty hands. As soon as she entered the door, she ran towards the emperor with a smile and shouted, Uncle Huang, Fu Niu has brought you a melon. It's big and sweet. If it's not delicious, you don't have to pay for it." Ha ha ha, the emperor bent down to pick up the fat girl, hugged her and sat down, and said, "Fu Niu is used to selling melons, and she is so skilled at shouting." Jiyan blushed a little, stuck out her tongue, and quickly replied, "No, Grandma and the village chief grandpa said that the first melon must be eaten by the emperor, and then it can be sold for money. Fu Niu is just practicing, she hasn't had time to help sell melons yet." The emperor laughed even more when he heard this. Among other things, there was never any doubt about the loyalty of people like Sujintan. Even if you plant melons in the field, remember to let him take the first bite. Li Lao and the village chief knelt down and kowtowed, shouting, "Long live the emperor, long live the emperor." "Get up quickly," the emperor raised his hand. When he saw the good news and wanted to kowtow, he pushed the fat girl down. "It's hot, so don't bother. Look at the sweat beads on your forehead. Uncle Huang will wipe it for you. Wipe." Jiyan smiled and raised her fat face, and really asked the emperor to help wipe the sweat. She also chirped, "Uncle Huang, yesterday Fu Niu went to pick melons for Uncle Huang, and one of the melons suddenly exploded. It's such a pity." Fu Niu took a few bites for Uncle Huang. "Wow, it's so delicious, so sweet. Uncle Huang, you must eat more to quench your thirst and cool down, so that you can better criticize the dumplings." Fu Niu also wants to give a few to her adoptive father, but the adoptive father is too far away, and Fu Niu doesn't even know where is he. The emperor smiled and listened from beginning to end. Not only did he wipe the little girl's sweat, but he also gave the mung bean paste snacks on the table to the little girl. Okay, Uncle Huang will eat it soon. You can try the snacks in the palace first. There are some isn't it as delicious as the ones at your shop." Jiyan took a big bite of half of it and tasted it carefully for a long time. The mung bean cake was soft and sweet, completely different from the ones he had eaten before. It's perfect to eat snacks like this in summer. She suddenly lost her face and said in frustration, "Uncle Huang, the most delicious dim sum in the world is really in the palace. When the dim sum chef comes out of the palace, let him go to my dim sum shop, and I will open it for him. Double wages, okay." The emperor couldn't help but laughed again, and nodded the fat girl's nose. "Your adoptive father always said you were smart, but I still didn't believe it, but now I know it. As soon as you open your mouth, you will bring out the best in the palace." The pastry chef rushed away. Jiyan was not embarrassed at all when her little thoughts were discovered. Instead, she pouted her lips and complained, "Uncle Huang is so stingy. If you don't give it to the cook, you can just give her snack recipes." Poor Fu Niu is getting oily from being exposed to the sun. He also had to ride a carriage to deliver melons to Uncle Huang. Fu Niu can't even get a snack recipe. Woohoo, Fu Niu is so sad. When she's sad, she misses her adoptive father so much. She misses so much. Okay, the emperor was really dumbfounded and surrendered quickly. End of this chapter.